Now, the next two use cases will be about recommender systems, and we're going to hear from Schibsted, who has this system called Curate, algorithm-driven front pages with a human in the loop, or editors, as we used to call them at some point. Please welcome Christoph Schmitz.
Thank you. All right, excited to be here. Really like that use case with organizing the video content. I've seen some messy archives and video content, and I was solving some pretty good use cases. So yeah, Schibsted's a relatively large company. I come from the news media part, and in the news media part, we have a small team, function and product. It's called Curate. And what we do is content recommendation. So in all of that content recommendation, we have a mission to serve the right content to the right user in the right format, at the right place, at the right moment. It's a long, I have to but it sets the scope of what we're trying to do, while safeguarding the journalistic mission. Because we are not TikTok and we're not YouTube, and we can't just automate on engagement, right? We serve a purpose. Our brand serves a purpose, and we want to make sure that they remain true to their editorial nature. So, first of all, we want to secure that, and on top of that, we want to provide a content offering tailored to each individual user. Curate was initially set up to manage the front pages of our news sites, like being an editorial tool. It's implemented for most of our sites. We also serve some of the Polaris sites, and in total we are serving 50 sites on our system. On a high-level view, and I'll go into the AI part in a bit, but on a high-level view, what we do is that we have a tool where the editors can place the content and the articles that are most relevant now. Whether it's top news in Sweden today with a 73-year-old who committed a crime, or in Norway where the most influential influencer is back together with her teenage boyfriend, headline news, whatever it might be, they place and they decide what's the most important news at any given time. We take that as a piece of data together with some algorithms that they have defined. We're going to look at them as well. And the data on the user behavior, and we give an output and an endpoint listing the articles. We're just giving an endpoint with the articles ranging from 1 to 80, kind of like a playlist, and the brands implement it in their systems as they see fit. In this case, Aftonbladet knows the best what kind of entities they want to showcase with their articles, whether it's what title format or image format. Same if you want to use it in an app, or we would implement with Google Nest as a playlist, right? Whoever owns that platform you're showcasing it on knows best how to implement it. So we're lucky in that way. We only need to provide a list. So when we look into the automation part, and we sort of We acknowledge that editors have decided which news is going to go out and to be seen by all, and we have something that the automation is handling, some positions. It starts with the definition of a content selection. They also define what rules should apply for any article to be eligible to go on the front page. It can, for example, be that it has to be newer than 24 hours, have a certain news value, because they are also setting a news value. It should belong to a certain tag, or if it has a certain tag, it is not shown on the front page. So they have editorial control over a pool of articles. And when we have that pool of articles, let's say it's 100 articles, we can use different algorithms and rankings to sort that pool of articles. A few examples here. For example, the live ETR, which is a smart algorithm, kind of like the CTR, but it has some extra functionality looking at the size of the teaser and the placement of the teaser and so on. We have time decay, so we can combine the age of an article and the news value to give it a certain score. Or we have different ways of looking at activity, reading score or time spent combined with amount of impressions on the front page, conversions, and we can remove after read or remove after a user has seen it 4 times or 2 times or whatever they decide is the appropriate formula in their end, right? So they can use like 2 parts of one and 1 part of another and put it together like it was a pancake batter or a cocktail, I don't know. And then in the end, when we also combine the content selection and the rankings with the data, we get a ranking. We get a sorted list. And the sorted list could look kind of like this. This is not a very special list, but on the challenger column, you kind of have the end score. And then we have a time decay, which is one formula giving a score. And we put them together. And we can see that, for example, the one starting with RL has a slightly lower live ETR. It's not that clicking that well. It's not performing that well, but it has a higher time decay. So the editorials have decided that the recency and the importance of this article will make it come higher up on the list. And we can do this in various ways. So we can do this for non-logged in users. They're not subscribers. So we can make one ranking with the articles that's converting the best. We can make a formula that we see is converting very well. And for those users who are logged in, who are subscribers, we can make a formula that ranks by time spent or that engages them. Because we see that articles that convert well don't really is read that well, and vice versa. If it's read well by subscriber, it's probably not also all of the time converting very well. So we have different ways. And we can also do it by open articles, engagement, where we want the readers to read the articles and read all of them so we can get all the ads impressions. And then we can tune it by different goals, right? So we have this list in the end, right? We have some top positions, 2, 5, 10, I don't know, what they decide is what they want of manual spots, and we have something that we call secured spots, which is also sort of where the editors drag and drop stories, but they can get help from the algorithms, so they have a different pool. They say this story is important for all to read, but we don't really care if it's far down on the side or far up or whatever. And then we have some positions for conversions and one for engagement. That's our list, and the brands, they place them out on the front page, or Google Nest, or an app, or where it should be, right? So what about personalization then? We made something called Topic Ranker, which was our first venture into creating a personalized ranker. It's not machine learning, it's not AI, it's a pure statistical model looking at sections. And how many times have you, as a user, seen a sports article and clicked or not clicked? And how does that section compare to all the other sections, like culture? Is your click rate on sports higher or lower than the average? And then we can score by that. And then we end up something like this, and this is my score list and my test, so it's GDPR safe. And we have an example here where we see the second one from the top, like the top story, it's performing really well. But the second one, it has a lower time decay, meaning it's older, has a lower news value, not for the general anymore, right? But I haven't read it before, and the live ETR is also not performing that well. But I like that section a lot. So it's a story from a section that I like a lot that I haven't read, so it's bumped to the top. The algorithm and the sum of it all makes sure that I am exposed to content that I would like, but it also has the power to secure that I get the content that the editors say that I should read, because it's important, right? It uses sections. It's not really finely granulated. We looked into tags, but the problem is that we have about, I don't know, 100 or something thousand tags. So we don't really get enough data to personalize on that. Sections, they in general only say which department in the newsroom wrote the story, right? Was it the sports people? Was it the culture people? Who wrote the story? It does not really say what it's about, but it gives a hint, right? It gives a hint. And so it's easy to understand, it's easy to configure, and it prepares the newsroom for personalization. The page dump, it's not screen dump, is from Aftenposten, dated the 9th of May in 1877. Sometimes we forget that the newsroom and the way that content is created and everything dates back to that printed sheet of paper. And that was not very personalized. So there's a transition here. But we see that when we introduce this relatively simple personalization, it does something with the newsroom. It starts to move the newsroom. We talked about the limitations. I mentioned them. All right, so now we're moving over to AI and ML. Collaborative filtering. And that's something that's really getting me excited, because we can now use the wisdom of the crowd and sort of see similarities. We can get better models. It doesn't care if it's an article or a video or a sound clip or what it is. It doesn't care what it's really about, but we see that it's figuring out what I really want to read. And it adds that to that ranking. Of course, we still only get to play with that pool of articles, but we can extend that pool of articles. And we can really bump up stuff that the readers really care about. What we also see is that when we include the negatives, not only on what I read, but also what I deliberately not want to read, that really enhances the collaborative filtering model. So that's a hint for you that is looking into those models. Take a look at the negatives as well as the positives. So the biggest task that we're on to is really making a platform so we can scale. We believe that making the models, training the models, is going to be shelfware. It's going to be super easy. We're going to have lots of models, but making a platform that can really use all of those models, using the feature store and adding more additional data, knowing that my subscription history, perhaps also what content I search for at Finn or Blocket or Tori if it's in Finland, additional data connected to my Schibsted ID is really going to make a big difference. we spend a lot of time building great relationships with the newsrooms. And I think that's also part of why we are able now to move so rapid, because they hold the DNA for all our brands. And even if AI and machine learning and everything is the future, we won't get anywhere unless the newsrooms are in on it. And that gives a lot of value to our rankings and how we view content as well. So yeah, thank you.
We have time for 1-2 questions. I'll take the first one.
Right.
A subject that we're going to talk much about is transparency.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, and what you're doing tomorrow, and in the autumn and next year, will you be able to answer the question of a user who asks, why do I see this?
That depends how finely granulated you want that answer. But yeah, we have to figure that out, and we are doing our best to document and describe our models to when we really need to give that information as well. The funny thing is that when we do user interviews and user research, our users respond, oh, we thought you were already doing that. So, yeah.
Is it important to be able to answer that question?
So the users who think that we are already doing machine learning and that type of content recommendation, but don't really care about it, we aren't getting those questions, but they still think that we are already doing it.
So basically, they trust you.
Yeah, I probably do. And our brands, because it's also in the hands of our brands, because they are using it.
We have a question here in the front. Do we have a microphone? And please introduce yourself.
I can speak loud.
Take a microphone.
Okay.
Yes.
Better.
I'm Johan Linden from Swedish Television. I have a question related to that kind of feedback loop to the audience. How do you feedback this to the newsroom and the reporters? I ask this because Financial Times realized that they made a huge leap in the newsroom when they fed back the data that they had with this algorithm to the specific reporters. So they actually started writing in a different way, and they started looking for stories in a different way. Are you doing that?
No, we are not doing that now. Of course, they know what's going in, what's who's reading their stories. But that's more on a general level rather than the AI level. Of course, they are having discussions in the newsroom that, for example, we see sports are highly polarizing. And apparently not everyone in the newsroom think that. Some took that as a bit of a surprise because they thought sports were for everyone. We have to start in that end first.
The reporter does not see what you see, how their stories are actually triggering the system.
So the newsroom, they do. In the tool, they can see. They can see which stories is being recommended and what score it is getting. But it's more for the front page editors, not for the journalists themselves.
But you could extract that learning and give it as a feedback loop into the newsroom if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be the next step.
Yeah, if they're interested.
Thank you for your speech.
Thank you.